learning these mathematical equations. What are the utilities of putting these complex differential equations, partial as well as. I request you to kindly mute all your microphones, okay? So all these equations, they are. See, when you are coming to an IIT, all these equations are taught in a very dry manner for some physical problems here and there, spanning from, say, electromagnetism to suppose a fluid flow. Can you please turn off your microphone? This is very irritating. Some of you, yes, thank you. Thanks a lot. So electromagnetism, fluid flow, okay, solid mechanics, different types of problems that you have attempted, but that are all bits and pieces. Now, as you are learning thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, heat transfer, it is closing down to a set of engineering problems, and you will slowly see as they will emerge how these mathematical equations, especially the differential equations, ordinary as well as partial differential equations, they take a shape in order to explain the phenomena that we generally study. So we were studying a simple chunk of a solid, and in that we defined a differential element, one-dimensional element which has the width of dx, and we understood that if Qx is the rate of heat that is coming from one of the walls, which is having an area of A, and Qx plus dx is going out, and then Q dot is the heat that is generated inside. So I can put forward a simple balance equation, energy balance equation. So from the left hand side, how much energy conducted, heat generated within the element, change of internal energy of the system, and heat conducted out the right surface. So you can see this is Fourier law we are using at left x face here, x plus dx, we are using how much it is conducted, then how much that is generated inside this volume, and then the change in the internal energy. Now, if I do a balance of this, what am I supposed to get? I am supposed to get a very simple equation. A very simple equation like this, which is the k d square dt by dx square plus q dot equal to rho Cp del t by del tau. Okay. Now, this part is the conduction part, this part is the generation part, and this part is the change of rate of change of temperature with respect to the change of temperature with respect to time, or the rate of change of temperature. So essentially, you can see that if I put this to 0, this q dot to 0, this will become a parabolic equation. If I put this part to 0, this will become an elliptic differential equation. Okay, and if q dot and del rho del t by del t are 0, then this will become a Laplace equation. Whereas if this is 0, then these two will compose a Poisson's equation. So you can straight away see the equations that you have studied up to this point in different types of mathematics courses or solid mechanics or different types of mechanics courses. You straight away see some of the applications that are coming out in terms of heat transfer. Now we extended this study that here we were doing for a single phase only. Now here we are doing for multiple phases. Say suppose I take a cube and I have one side at x and the other side at x plus dx. So this is a differential volume element. Okay, this is a differential volume element having a volume of dx, dy, and dz. And I enforce the same balance equation. What is that? Qx is the heat conducted on the x surface, x plus dx is conducted out. This is coming in, x is coming in, and x plus dx is going out. X is coming in and x plus dx is going out. Okay, y is coming in, y plus dy is going out. Z is coming in and z plus dx, dz is going out. Okay, so in that process, what happens? This part takes care of the conduction that is coming in through all the phases. This part of the equation takes what is going out through these phases. And this part takes care of the generation. This part takes care of the generation, total generation of heat inside the system. And this part takes care of what? This part takes care of what is the change of the energy inside the system. So this is the time dependent change. This is the generation inside the system. This is the input through conduction. This is the output through conduction. Now, if I accumulate all of them, applying Fourier's law, I end up getting a very simple partial differential equation where this part is responsible for elliptic, this part and this part is responsible for a parabolic partial differential equation. If I put this to 0, this part will become minus of q dot by k, which will lead to a Poisson's equation. If this is 0, this is 0. This part will become 0. That will become a Laplace's equation. So one can very clearly see that a partial differential equation of this kind, which is essentially a parabolic partial differential equation, which is of second order, which is a linear equation. Okay, that gives us the solution for. That gives us the solution for what? That gives us the solution for the heat transfer. So this is being conducted, this is being generated, and this is the total change of temperature with respect to time. This Q dot is the generation inside the volume, K is the thermal conductivity, and we have identified this parameter alpha, which is K by rho Cp, which is called the thermal diffusivity. What is thermal diffusivity? Thermal diffusivity is if I think about a matter, what exactly is the amount of heat it is going to store and how much it is going to conduct. This ratio is defined by the thermal diffusivity. So we could perform the same shell balance equation for a volume, okay, starting from a thin slit. So this is a thin slit and this is a volume. This can also be extended for a cylindrical coordinate system and for a spherical coordinate system. Why? Because cylindrical coordinate I am going to consider a pipe-like configuration. Okay, and for a sphere I am going to consider a ball-like configuration. Right. So these are all very important heat transfer systems, the balls, the pipes, okay, the triangles, the rectangles, okay, these are all building blocks of different types of heat transfer system. So you can see that this equation can be transformed for a cylindrical coordinate system, which takes a form like this, whereas for spherical coordinate system, it takes a form like that. And this we have extensively discussed in the last class, that how exactly these transformations are done, imagining that this is a Cartesian coordinate system. You have placed a cylinder in a Cartesian coordinate system, and that cylinder you are putting as r theta z. You are defining the cylinder through r theta z, which is correlated to x y z with these relations, and these r theta and phi, which is the property which are the coordinates of a sphere, correlated to the x y z, which is the Cartesian coordinate of the system. So we did perform some of the transformations and showed that how exactly we calculate del del x, del del y, and del del z in terms of del del r, del del theta, and del del z. And then if we replace back those here and accumulate all the terms, we will be able to get this particular term. This is for a cylindrical coordinate, and for a spherical coordinate, what will happen? We have to first evaluate these terms, and then we have to evaluate the derivatives, and then we have to enforce in this equation collection all of them in order to get the equations for the spherical coordinates. Okay, in general, these are not needed to be remembered. If you just remember the last lecture, the transformation that was discussed, you will be able to very easily obtain once, if you do once or twice, you will be able to really obtain, using this identity, you will be able to really obtain the obtain those equations. Now, once you have done this equation, now you can see that if somebody tells you that there is a steady state one-dimensional heat flow. Steady state means there is no time component. Okay, one-dimensional heat flow with no heat generation means Q dot component is missing. So your equation becomes d square T by dx square is equal to 0. Correct? So steady state and one-dimensional means that's why only x is coming. Two-dimensional means this will become d square T dx square plus d square T by dy square will be equal to 0. And no heat generation means that Q dot term is missing. Now, if I convert this to a cylindrical coordinate, you can straight away see what is the r coordinate here. You can see the r coordinate is composed. This is the phi component. This is the z component. Z component remains to be the same. This is the phi component, and this is the phi or theta component, and this is the r component, right? So one-dimensional equation for cylindrical coordinate, you can see it will become like this. Again, for no heat generation, Q dot will be 0. And at the same time, the time derivative will be 0. Now, if you add heat generation to it, how does the equation will look like? If you add heat generation to it, the equation will look like this. This is typically a Poisson's equation. Okay. Why I am writing in terms of ordinary differentials here? Because this is a one-dimensional equation. Moment it goes to two dimension, you see that I have taken the partial differential equation, which is an elliptic equation, or this is also called the, this is also called the Laplace equation. So you can see a wide range of simplified systems, can be evaluated when you are ready with this generic framework. When you are ready with this generic framework, right? When you are ready with this generic framework. And in the previous lecture, the lecture before the previous lecture, we have also seen how exactly this is derived from Reynolds transport theorem. Okay, for an energy balance equation, for a control volume element. So these three connect very well. As I progress, as I bring in convection and radiation together, then I will talk in a more extensive manner how exactly they are integrated to the transport equation. Just to give a very clear picture that in continuum how energy balances are integrated for heat transfer. And then maybe at the end of the course, if all of you remain interested, I may give some idea about how they are being now translated into even for the quantum mechanical calculations. What is the method? The framework is not very different. The framework remains same. Only a few additional factors they come because of the different other aspects of relativity. Yes, kindly turn off your microphones. Thank you. Now then, what we discussed, the different types of conductivities of the different types of materials. Okay, like say suppose gases, like say suppose liquids, like say suppose solids, and we identified the reason for temperature dependence. These two slides, as we discussed, from there, we understood that what is the molecular definition. So suppose, say from the kinetic theory of gases, how do we arrive to get the Fourier's law of heat conduction number 1 for a very simple gas? Okay. Then what we understood, how exactly thermal conductivity emerged as a fundamental property from all the basic properties of a gas which is undergoing kinetic theory, and why this thermal conductivity is dependent on the temperature, and why exactly for heat flux calculations, you require the temperature gradient. Okay, and how exactly mean free path of the molecule, how exactly molecular arrangements are dependent on the calculations of the heat flux. So we realize that every molecule is undergoing a kind of incessant motion, and because of this motion, what is happening? There is a kinetic energy of the particle. Now this kinetic energy of the particle, what it is doing, it is getting bombarded on the wall. Now when this kinetic energy is enforcing the bombardment on the wall, what is happening? Some energy of kinetic energy is getting converted to heat. Now this heat is now conducted. Now this, when it has collided with the wall and it has exchanged some heat, the level of energy is different. Okay. Now that is translated as, you say that PV equal to RT, right? Now PV is the pressure volume force which is associated with the kinetic energy. RT is the manifestation that how fast these particles are moving, colliding between themselves and colliding with the wall in the form of exchanging the energy. And in the process, how exactly from there you correlate the heat flux with first the kinetic energy and then with the temperature gradient. So there the mean free path is one very important factor. Why? Because if you have length scale which is larger than mean free path, there will be no collision. If it is smaller than that, there will be collision. Okay. Then other important factor is the temperature gradient across your space, how the temperature is changing. Okay. Then what are the other important factors? The specific heat, the capacity to retain the heat. For this is a fundamental property of a molecule. So you can see that all of them, they come together in a group in order to define the most fundamental definition of the thermal conductivity, which is a function of a lot of parameters. Okay. This is for a monoatomic gas. Of course, for a solid, for a different types of polymers, okay, for different types of other materials like liquid crystals. You know, these will be having, say, suppose ionic liquids, these will be having different types of complexities. Okay, so essentially, when you take the constant for thermal conductivity for a heat conduction equation, it is not actually a constant, but it is also a variable. It is a function of temperature, and it is a function of a lot of other fundamental properties of matter. Okay, these two slides are given to you just to give you the idea that what are the other fundamental properties on which, you know, this particular parameter can depend. Now, these two slides are taken from Burt Stewart Lightfoot. You know, Burt Stewart Lightfoot, Transport Phenomena, is a beautiful book. In that book, you may see that in the beginning of the book, you know, they are giving the momentum transfer in the similar line. Then in the middle of the book, they are giving the heat transfer in the similar line. And then at the end of the book, they are giving the same framework for the mass transfer, connecting the properties called momentum diffusivity to viscosity, thermal diffusivity to conductivity, and mass diffusivity to the general diffusion coefficient that we generally see. So please go through these chapters. Why am I telling this? This is very, very important for all of you. As you progress and as you appear for interview, say suppose third year or fourth year of your job interviews, these are the typical questions that are asked. So you will be asked, say suppose you will be asked, what is your favorite subject? If you tell that, you know, heat transfer is your favorite subject, then they will ask you, what is the first question of heat transfer book? That is, what is Fourier's law of heat conduction? Okay. Now, once you are through with the Fourier's law of heat conduction, they will try to tell you what is the rate of heat flux, how exactly you define, what is thermal conductivity, and what is temperature gradient. Now, if you define all these three, they will say that, okay, do you tell me, like, you know, how thermal conductivity is dependent on different parameters that are associated with the molecules. How is it a molecular phenomenon? So I have put forward this slide 10 and 11 for you, just to tell you how exactly thermal conductivity is correlated to that. Please look into the Transport Phenomena book. Okay, I have already shared with you. They are, like, you know, the same definition under the same framework for viscosity and the same framework for the mass diffusivity. Okay. Now, if you are through with these things, there are three properties. One is, say, suppose you say your favorite subject is fluid mechanics. So people will definitely ask you what is Newton's law of viscosity, and there the definition of viscosity will come. This will also have a correlation with the molecular arrangements. If you tell that your favorite subject is mass transfer, then again the same question will come. You have to, what is Fick's law of diffusion? And there you have to define what is diffusivity. So there is an analogy. You know, all the theories that have been developed, there is an analogy. These are all analogous theories. Like, say, suppose matter is transporting, momentum is transporting, energy is transporting. That is the framework that we started with this for this particular course, as we really showed that, you know, why exactly it is happening for a heat transfer case. How exactly Reynolds transfer theorem, you know, it is transporting mass, transporting momentum, transporting energy. Okay, it can be kinetic energy. It can be transporting other properties, okay, transport properties, and then within that framework, how exactly all these theories they fit in, and what is the origin, how you physically connect, you know, these theories with the physical concepts. Great. Once we are through with that, then we were discussing about what? Then we were discussing about certain other aspects. What was the initial aspect? That any phenomena where some flow takes place or some transport takes place, it has two very, very important aspects. One is, who is the facilitator? For which reason? For what is the purpose? What is the driving force actually drives the phenomena? Okay. And second is, what exactly is the resistive factor? Or rather, what are the facilitating factors and what are the restricting factors? There will be multiple. Say, suppose you want to make a fluid flow. So the pressure drop, if you create a pressure difference, the fluid may flow, right? But what is the resisting factor? The friction can become resisting factor. Okay, say suppose you want to flow mass. Okay, so what exactly is the factor that, you know, promoting the masses to go forward? It is the concentration gradient, you know, the difference in concentration that helps the mass to go from one place to the other place. Okay. Similarly, presence of other masses nearby places will give a restrictive factor. So that will become a resistance. So for heat, if I look a heat transfer equation or heat conduction equation, the temperature difference is the driving force for the heat transfer. The difference in temperature between two surfaces or two different points gives me the driving force. Whereas the delta X by Ka, delta X, the thickness of the wall divided by the thermal conductivity into area, this particular part gives me the resistance. So if you have A, B, C, three walls that are connected in series, and then if you are allowing a heat Q to flow, rate of heat that is flowing from this wall is Q, and then this is coming out to be Q. And if you can cause a temperature difference of, say, suppose this is T1, so this is T2, this is T3, and this is T4. Okay, so what is your overall temperature driving force? This is highest is T1 and lowest is T4. What is the total resistance? Delta XA, the length of this divided by KA. KA is the thermal conductivity of this. A is this cross-sectional area. Delta XB by KBA, this is the delta XB divided by KBA, and delta XC by KCA. So you can understand that the three walls will be providing this much of total resistance, which you can write as a summation of total resistance, and that the numerator will be delta T overall. So heat flow is what? Thermal potential difference divided by thermal resistance. So you can see, so for an electrical flow, what exactly you do? What is the ratio? Is the total potential difference divided by V equal to IR, right? Current is the flow, right? So what is that? That is equal to V by R. Total potential difference divided by total resistance provided by the wire. So similarly, you can really put this as a network, RA, RB, RC. Now say suppose if you have wall like this, a composite wall you have prepared for a furnace where this material is A, there is B, C, D, E, F, G. How do you break down into circuit? You break down into circuit like this. See, this A corresponds to RA. Since B, C, D, these three are there, RB, RC, RD. Okay, this will be in parallel, but then overall the entire system is in series with this. Then you have, so here you have A and B. So this is AB route, this is A and C, this is AC route, this is A and D, this is AD route. Okay, then you have RE, which is again in series with this, and then it is F and G. So F is with F and E with G. So very simple logic. If you look at the way it has been put in, so the resistance is what? Delta T by QA. So it's a very simple logic that is followed in terms of these circuit developments and all. What we did, we translated this for, say, suppose if it is a rectangular cross section, say suppose if it is a cylindrical cross section, whether they are going to match 1-to-1 or not. So for cylinders, we know that area is 2 pi RL. Say for a cylinder, what is that? 2 pi RL plus what? 2 pi R square, right? The two caps are there. But since heat transfer happens only, I'm assuming there is a fluid flow and it's an infinite cylinder. Okay, so my radius, my area allowed for heat transfer is the circumferential area, and through that, what is the area through which the heat is getting transported? That is 2 pi RL. Okay, this heat flux is normal to this area 2 pi RL. So moment I replace this with 2 pi RL, there is a dependence of dr and 2 pi RL, which leads to a log. Okay, so for the cylinder, you will find that this will become ln R0 by Ri, 2 pi KL Ti minus T0 divided by ln R0 by Ri. When I integrated for a rectangular cross section, I obtain like this. But when I integrate for a cylinder, since the area has a radius dependence of the cylinder, I obtain an equation like Q equal to 2 pi KL Ti minus T0 by ln R0 by Ri. So from there, the resistance becomes ln R0 by Ri. So earlier it was R0 minus X2 minus X1 delta X. So that becomes ln R0. So suppose if you have a cylinder which has an inner radius of Ri and outer radius of Ro. Okay, what will be the resistance? The resistance will be ln Rho by Ri divided by 2 pi KL. Okay. Now, if you have multiple such, say suppose R1, R2, R3, R4, logic remains same. So what you do for RA, what you do ln R2 by R1 2 pi KAL. Okay, ln R3 by R2 divided by 2 pi KBL. Okay, ln R4 by R3, R4 by R3 2 pi. So in that process, what you do, you calculate the total. You calculate the total. You know, if you keep adding them, you calculate the total, which goes to the denominator. And what is there in the numerator? 2 pi L into T1 minus T4. So T1 minus T4 is the total temperature difference. T1 is the inner fluid, T4 is the outer fluid, and you have multiple levels of, say, suppose insulation. This is the pipe wall, this is the insulation. Okay, this is the inner insulation, this is the outer insulation. That can be converted to a single equation like this, which is the corresponding form of heat transfer through a cylindrical surface. This was the corresponding form for heat transfer for a rectangular surface with a rectangular cross section. And for spheres, you know, if you convert this area will become 4 pi r square. If you plug in this equation 4 pi r square, what you will obtain? You will obtain an equation like this. So you can see dr by r square will lead to 1 by ri minus 1 by ru. So straightforward, simple equation. So one very important aspect from these two slides are coming, that although the resistance remain additive, geometry has a huge influence on the type of equation that you obtain. And that's very, very important in terms of calculation of the driving force, which remains to be the highest to lowest temperature. But then the resistance has a huge influence on the geometry of the material. Good, great, and fantastic. So next is what? Now, since we have now understood more or less the framework in which the conduction will operate, we just force that in case of a conductive system, say suppose this is my hot block where the conduction is taking place, I bring in the phenomena called convection. So this hot block, you know, I'm just leaving in, say I have heated a ball and I have kept in the atmosphere to cool down. So what will happen? Of course, this hot block will lose its temperature over a period of time. However, if I blow air on top of that, say suppose there is a hot air. If I blow air on top of that, there is also a chance of faster cooling of this hot air. So the flow of the fluid that is surrounding a solid medium, okay, has some influence on the rate of heat transfer. Okay, and that part which is controlled by the flow is called the convection. This convection is of two types, the forced convection and the natural convection. Natural convection means I'm not allowing any forced, any fan or compressor or something to just, you know, blow on top of this in order to make sure that this is cool. I'm just allowing it to cool naturally. So that is called a natural convection. You know that this will be a hot surface, density will be lower, this will be cooler, so density will be higher. So higher density fluid will come down, lower density fluid will go up. And in the process, there will be recirculation zones created, which will help in cooling out this hot air. Whereas if I blow air, what will happen? You know, whatever low density fluid is there, that will be taken out, driven out by this flow, and new air will be replaced. New air will be replaced from that side, which is much cooler. So in that process, what will happen, since you are forcing it, you can control the time of removal of this air, and in the process, you can cool down this hot air. And this has been decided by this heat transfer has been decided by the Newton's law of cooling, which says that this heat transfer is proportional to H A delta T. What is H? H is the heat transfer coefficient. H is what? H is the heat transfer coefficient in the boundary layer, that is in the boundary layer that is sticking on the solid surface, but this is in the liquid domain. So convection is always happening in the liquid. Convection is not happening in the solid. So convection is the fluid layer that is adjacent to the solid. Now one question may come, Is there any conduction taking place? Yes. Apart from convection, there is also a heat conduction through the liquid. So this liquid film, which is sticking to the surface, have two components of heat transfer. One is conduction, which is the normal way of, like, the way heat is transferred in the solid, and the other is the convection. Now it appears that this conduction of fluid is very, very small as compared to the convection or convection of the liquid and conduction of the solid. Why? Because the gases in liquid, the particles are fairly, is not very close to each other. Okay, so effect of conduction in a liquid is much, much less than the effect of convection, and the effect of convection in the fluid and effect of conduction in the solid. So in this layer, if the thermal conductivity of the fluid is K, if the thickness of this boundary layer is delta, this H is nothing but the thermal conductivity by delta, the thickness. So again, you can see that H is coming as a resistive parameter. Why we wanted to study that? Because now we are translating our knowledge into a real engineering system for calculation. What is that real engineering system? Let's say, suppose I have a heat exchanger where the inner pipe, the fluid A is flowing, and from outer pipe there is a fluid B is flowing. So suppose in the inner pipe, the fluid A, so suppose it is the hot fluid, the fluid B that is coming from outer pipe, that is suppose cold fluid. Okay, and I need to consider this particular geometry, and then I have to apply the knowledge that I have learned up to this point. So how do I do that? First, what I do, I say that this is the boundary wall. This is the solid wall across which the main heat transfer is taking place. I'm not considering this one. I'm not considering this one. This is a pipe. Okay, and I'm considering this wall first, and I want to see what is happening across this wall. So I see that this wall is at a higher temperature. Okay, this wall is at a lower temperature. Okay, because why? Say suppose this is the outer fluid. Okay, which is at much smaller temperature. This is the inner fluid, which is at a much higher temperature. Okay, the inner fluid is having a higher temperature, which is cooling down. The outer fluid is having a lower temperature, which is heating up. Okay, now this temperature is cooled down within this boundary layer. Okay, there is a fluid and there is a boundary layer. So first TA is the fluid temperature here in the pipe. Near the wall of this boundary, what is happening? There is a boundary layer, and the fluid is slowly cooling down. Okay, fluid is slowly cooling down. So this is the boundary layer. This is the delta thickness where the convection heat transfer is taking place. Then what is happening after T1 to T2? What is happening? There is a conduction heat transfer through this wall. Okay, and then from T2 to TB, there is again another conduction heat transfer through this fluid. So essentially, when the cold fluid is flowing, what is happening? It is getting heated up from TB to T2. Whereas when the hot fluid is flowing, it is getting cooled down from TA to T1. Now this T1 to T2 is happening, the change of temperature change T1 to T2 is happening across this pipe. Now in this sort of situation, what I can do, I can see that this heat transfer process is undergoing basically energy dissipation through three different resistances. One is because in the inner fluid because of this boundary layer, one is in the outer fluid because of this boundary layer, and one is the pipe wall which is associated with this particular wall. Okay, and how do I define delta X by K? I was defining the resistance with respect to what? With respect to conduction. And how do I define the resistance here for a convection system? It will be 1 by HA. You can straight away see driving force by the resistance. So you can see 1 by H1A, which is this side, TA to T1. This is the resistance provided by this boundary layer. And 1 by H2, this is the resistance that is provided by this boundary layer. So what I can do, I can see that Q, the heat transfer is what? This is the resistance, total resistance I add. This is the series resistance. and this is TA minus TB. So essentially, TB is here in the fluid, TA is here in the fluid B, TB is here in the fluid B, TA is here in the fluid A, and TB minus TA or TA minus TB is the temperature difference between the suppose the center lines of these two. Say suppose this line and this line in the middle, in the bulk of the fluid, in the bulk of the fluid. Now, what is the rate of heat transfer? Rate of heat transfer becomes something like this. And what you say, this 1 by H1A plus delta X by K, 1 plus 1 by H2, this you define as a heat transfer coefficient, which is the overall heat. This is a H1, H2 are the local heat transfer coefficient, whereas you define as the overall heat transfer coefficient, which is the total resistance value, and this you can write as a analogy towards the Newton's law of cooling, that Q equal to UA delta T overall. Okay, so you are not really bothered about, once you write this, you are not really bothered about the local what is happening, but if you take into account all the local parameters related to area, heat transfer coefficient, thickness of the pipe and all, you will be able to really get the total. This is where the engineering practices come into picture, because it's very difficult for me to go measure temperature at boundary layer. I want something, whatever heat transfer is taking place inside the heat exchanger, I want to evaluate from outside without getting into it too much. Each sensor will cost me, each thermocouple will cost me a lot. If I really want to measure at the boundary layer temperature, if I really want to measure the temperature, wall temperature at the inner wall, outer wall. So question is, from outside, can I really define, based on the material properties, can I really define the heat flux or the rate of heat transfer based on some overall value? So this particular thing said that if I know fluid 1 and fluid 2, I may know their heat transfer coefficients. If I know the material of construction of the solid and the thickness of the wall, I will be able to really calculate the overall heat transfer coefficient. And from there, if I know that what are the temperatures to be maintained, from there I will be able to calculate. So I exactly need not know the different parameters like TA, T1, T2, TB. Okay, now what is the thickness of this? What is the thickness of that? Okay, whether it's linear or non-linear, which is changing inside. So these parameters are not necessary. Moment I converge all these parameters into a single parameter, which is called the overall heat transfer coefficient. Now, this overall heat transfer coefficient is of two types. One is called when it is expressed in terms of inner radius, and when it is expressed in terms of outer radius. Now, when does this appear? Now you see that for a cylindrical system, I was using delta X by K, which is not correct, which is true for a rectangular system, when the area will be, the cross section is rectangular. But for a pipe with finite diameter, this delta X by K will be replaced by ln R0 by Ri 2 pi KL. Okay, this just now we have derived. Now once you do that, once you do that, this is inner radius, this is outer radius, and this is R0 by Ri, right? Now UI is defined as when you normalize the entire system with respect to AI. Okay, when you take this AI out and you're doing nothing here, basically you are taking this AI out here. Okay, that is what is called the UI in terms of AI. Now, why this AI is coming here? You can see that this AI will go, ultimately this AI will go with this AI at the top. This is basically, U is basically this part you are considering. So one way of defining the overall heat transfer coefficient is in terms of AI, normalizing with respect to AI, and the other way of expressing the overall heat transfer coefficient is AI means this inner surface, AI means this inner surface, that means the inner part of it, AO means this outer part. Typically pipe thicknesses are very small, but it has been observed that even that has a lot of influence in terms of the calculation. So you can define these heat transfer coefficients in two different ways. One is in terms of inner diameter and the one is in terms of the outer diameter. Now, once we understand that convection, conduction together, say suppose if you have a furnace, this is outside air, then you have a common brick, and then you have a gypsum sheet which has got These are the sheets, but then in the middle you have got what? You have these to be as an insulation. These are the studs, okay, and this is inside air convection, and this is outside. So now in this sort of situation, how exactly you compose a resistance, a model? So you can see that this is the temperature outside. Then you have the convection, outside air convection. Okay, then you have the resistance for the brick, and then comes this thick insulation layer. So you can essentially divide this part as a parallel part. Okay, where these are the sheet. This is the sheet outside. Okay, then you have the insulator. This is the insulator, and then the sheet inside. Okay, so this part is composing this one, whereas this stud part is composed sheet outside, stud, and then the sheet inside. So these parts you are taking as one parallel item, and this part you are taking as another parallel item. You just have to total out everything, and then you have the convection that is happening inside. So that this is the temperature inside, this is the temperature outside. This is the way you can compose a circuit diagram associated with this sort of materials. Okay, so some tables are given, you just look at it. Typical thermal conductivity, temperature range are given. So you can see the some tables are given for conductors, some tables are given for insulators. This is just for your checking, like how exactly they change at different temperature and how, what are the conductivity. So it will give you a very good idea about what are the values, typical values that you use. This is a table for overall heat transfer coefficient. Just check with local and overall how much is it different. Okay. Now, one very important concept that comes up, say suppose you have a system where there is an inner fluid and then there is an outer fluid, and you have a wall through which the heat transfer is taking place. Now we have very easily derived that this Q will be equal to 2 pi L Ti minus T infinity divided by ln R0 by Rik plus 1 by R0, because this is coming from what? This is coming from the conduction, and this is coming from what? This is coming from R0 by Ri. So you have basically two different resistances here. Ti is the inner fluid. Okay, so inner fluid is having 1 by ROH, and then you have what? You have the insulation, and then something is happening at the outside. Now, in this sort of situation, if you really want to know, if you really want to set up a situation that this generally happens in case of a power plant. In power plant, what you do, you take water and you heat up the water. You heat up the water to the steam temperature in order to generate towards the boiling point in order to generate steam. Then you pressurize the steam into a high pressure steam. Now this high pressure steam you bombard on the turbines in order to rotate the turbine inside an electromagnetic chamber. Inside, this is basically a solenoid. You are rotating inside a electromagnet to generate electricity. Now it's very important that important and essential for you to what? To increase, first retain the temperature and increase temperature of the steam, and then what? Then do not dissipate energy from there. So for that purpose, what you do what? You put an insulation around the pipe. Example number 1. Example number 2 says, suppose if you have a refrigeration. If you have a refrigerant. Refrigeration means the process of cooling. Refrigerant means the material that is used for the process of cooling. Now, if you have a refrigerant that is flowing through a pipe, that means it will be at very low temperature. But we know that the room temperature is, say, suppose 25. So there is a temperature difference. So in this situation, what will happen? If you let the refrigerant to flow, all the water that is there in the air, it will get condensed to become ice on top of the surface, or like the air that is surrounding that will cool down very heavily. Now, in this form, what you can do while you have generated this, reduce the temperature of this refrigerant, it may heat up. Why? Because now it will be extracting heat from the surrounding. So in order to keep the refrigerant at a low temperature and in order to keep the steam at a high temperature, how exactly you manage? You put an insulation around that. Right? Now, when you put an insulation around that, say suppose this is your insulation thickness. And suppose this is your inner fluid that is there. So inner fluid is confined. Okay. Now what is the resistance? So, and this is outside you are, it is in T infinity. This is inside, this is T. So what is the total resistance network I can give? That this Ri ln Ri by R0 is my conduction loss that is happening inside. And then this 1 by 2 pi R0 L0H, that is my convection loss that is taking place in this fluid. Okay. So if I just, sorry, I made a mistake here. So suppose this is the fluid. Okay. This R0 by Ri 2 pi KL is happening. The conduction that is happening, the resistance against the conduction that is happening in this particular wall. And this particular resistance is associated with the flow that, say, suppose fluid is coming and taking the heat out. So 1 by 2 pi R0 LH. So this is HA, 1 by HA. That is the heat transfer due to the convection that is happening outside. So through the wall, first the fluid is flowing out. First the heat is flowing out. And from the wall, the heat is convected, and you have got two resistances. One resistance is associated with this wall, and the other resistance is associated with the boundary layer that is outside the pipe. Okay, so this is 1 by HA. HA is what? 2 pi R0L. And this will be, as we have just derived, ln R by R0, 2 pi K. Now, if I simplify this in terms of the heat transfer is equal to driving force by total resistance, I will get this equation. Now, if I take dq by dr0, okay, I may get a result, and then I put dq by dr0. What is dq? Rate of heat transfer R0 means with respect to the radius. If I put this to be 0, that means I am looking for a maximum or minimum. I will get a correlation which is called R0 equal to K by H for this system. What does it mean? That, say, suppose if you have a fluid inside, there will be two modes of heat transfer. One is the heat is conducted through the wall, and the other is the heat is convected at the outside wall. Okay. Now, what this particular slide tells you that is very important to understand this. What this particular slide tells you that if the outer radius is less than the value given, so suppose you have fixed the outer radius which is less than the value. So what will happen? Then the heat transfer will be increased, adding more insulation. So if you have a radius of insulation, total radius of insulation, including the pipe diameter, less than the value, that means if you add insulation, what will happen? If you add insulation, what will happen? The rate of the heat transfer will be increased. The heat transfer will be increased. Okay. What does it say? If the outer radius is less than the value of this. So essentially, you have to understand there are two competitions that is ongoing. One is there is a conduction that is associated with the wall, and one is the convection heat transfer that is happening in the outside. Now, the amount of heat transfer that will increase, you know that if I increase the area of heat transfer, what will happen? The amount of heat transfer will increase, right? So here you can see that if I increase this insulation thickness to some extent where the area is very large, that will allow a lot of air to take the heat out of the system. Now, what that will do, if the outer radius, that will be the other situation. If the outer radius is more than the value given by the equation, then the heat transfer will be reduced by adding more insulation. So there is a critical thickness beyond which if I add insulation, that may lead to what? That may lead to increase in the heat transfer or reduction in the heat transfer. Okay, let us understand this once again. Say, this is my rate of heat transfer. This is the total resistance to this is the driving force. If I am putting dq by dr to be 0, I am trying to find out an optimal condition, maxima or minima associate. So if I keep increasing the R, for which situation my heat transfer will be minimum or maximum? Now I am putting the value to be 0. Of course, the second derivative will decide whether it will be maximum or minimum. But if I put this first derivative to be 0, this will give me a condition R0 equal to K by H. So suppose I put R0 exactly to be K by H. So I know Ri is fixed. Now I am given by a company has given me the job. How much insulation should I produce? So I will first calculate if problem is given for a given pipe and all. So the heat transfer coefficient and all are given. So suppose I obtain R0 equal to 5.67. Okay. Now say suppose after that whatever calculations are given, I obtain for my system, I obtain R0 equal to 1.33 centimeter, which is less than this is coming from the physical properties. So my value for the pipe that I am right now designed, that comes less than this. So in that situation, what I should decide that since this is less than this, I need to put more insulation. Okay, if the outer radius is less than the value given by this equation, then the heat transfer will be increased by adding more insulation. So if it is less than that, if I add more insulation to that, okay, so the addition of 3.1, sorry, from where this 2.5 comes, 105 without convection, this is this. So 3.5 insulation actually increases the heat transfer by 25%. As an alternative, okay, let us just revisit once again. I mean, I'll come back to this problem in the next class. Let us revisit the problem once again. After forcing the optimal condition, R0 is obtained as K by H. Okay. Now K is the thermal conductivity of the solid, right? Of the insulator, and H is the heat transfer coefficient of the outer fluid. Now K by H will give me a value. Question is that we know that if R0 is too high, the convective heat transfer will increase. Whereas if R0 is too high, you are also reducing the conduction. Okay, so there are two competing forces. If I keep putting the insulator, what will happen? There will be a very thick insulation. It will not allow any energy transfer. Whereas if I keep increasing the thickness, what will happen? The outer radius will increase so much that it will allow the more convective heat transfer. So it may happen that you may start losing the heat beyond the critical point. Okay, and that has been decided by this K by H. What does it say? That if the outer radius is less than the value given, so this is fixed. Moment I have chosen the insulation and the insulation as well as the diameter of the pipe, this is fixed. Okay. Now, if this outer radius is less than the value given by this equation, then the heat transfer will be increased by adding more insulation. Why? Because if I keep adding more, the degree of heat transfer due to the convection will increase. Okay, we'll start discussing tomorrow with this problem to make it much more clear. Thank you for today. If you have any questions, you can ask. Do you have any question? Vinod? Vinod, are you there? Hello, Prathu.
Yes, sir.
Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, somebody has put a complaint that one of the students is doing mischief and they are removing. Okay, so just look into the matter how this can be fixed. Okay.
Yes, sir. I will see, sir. Yes.
Who is doing that? If we really can figure out this is something serious. Okay. So how
Yes,
can
sir.
we really take care of this problem? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. So let us meet tomorrow at the same time. Thank you. Thank you so much.